Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi shir.
Shalom and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi. Brachos Daf Yotes. We're 3 lines from the top. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Kol ha'mesaper achrei hameis, one who speaks negatively about one who passed away. He disparages one who had already passed away. Ki ilu mesaper achrei even. It's meaningless. It's as though he spoke about a stone. Why is that so? Ikadamri, some explain, the layadi, because the mace is not aware of what this person is saying, so it's meaningless. Ikadamri, some explain the reason is the yadi v'loy ichpaslu, although they are aware, nevertheless they don't really care about it, and therefore it's meaningless. It's as though he merely spoke about a stone. And he says, the Gemara, is that so that it's meaningless? But Amar of Papa Chadu, a story about one person, a fellow who spoke Ishtoi Milsa Basreid Mashmol. He spoke negatively regarding Mashmol after he passed away. And you know what happened? If a nafal kanya, a pole, a beam fell from mital, from the ceiling, from the roof, ubaza la'arnuk d'moiche, and crushed this man's, the encasing around his brain, la'arnuk d'moiche. So you see, he suffered a pretty severe einish, a retribution, as a result of him disparaging a Talmud Chacham after his passing. Says the Gemara, it's different. Shani tzubim rabbanon, a Talmud Chacham, a rabbinic scholar, is different. The kuchabrichu tava b'ikari, because Hashem Himself demands the honor of a Talmud Chacham. So that's a different case altogether. As we see in the following Gemara, Omar Rabbi Shimon Levi, kol hamesaper achar mitosan shel talmid chachamim, one who disparages achar mitosan, after their coffin, meaning after they pass away, after a Talmud Chacham passes away. What is the result? Neifel b'gehenim, he falls into Gehenim. Shenemar v'hamatim al-kalkuleisam, those who turn to al-kalkuleisam, to perverseness, they paint the Talmud Chacham in a negative light. Yelichem Hashem es po'el le'oven, Hashem will lead them to Gehenim. Concludes the pasuk, Shalom al Yisrael. What does this mean? Afilu b'shah sheshalom al Yisrael, even when there's peace amongst Yisrael. What does this mean? Even after the Talmud Chacham has already passed away, explains Tosfos, and there's no concern for machlekes, for arousing conflict and dispute. Nevertheless, since this person speaks negatively about Talmud Chacham, Yelichem Hashem es po'el le'oven, Hashem will lead him to Gehenim. Continues the Gemara. Tanad ve'rishma, im ra'isa Talmud Chacham she'avar leila b'layla. Even if one witnesses that a Talmud Chacham is transgressing an avera at night, still there's no reason to paint him in a bad light. Al taharer achar b'yayim. Don't question him. Don't consider him don't think about him in a negative. Don't paint him in a negative light. Al taharer achar b'yayim. Don't think about it by day anymore. Why? Shema asa tshuva, because perhaps he had already done tshuva. Says Zimur, Shema sal kadaitach. Maybe, perhaps, we're uncertain. No, elavada asa tshuva. We are certain that this Talmud Chacham, although you've seen him do something wrong, but by the next morning, he certainly had done complete tshuva. There's no reason anymore to look at him with that negative view. Says the Gemara, this is concerning his own personal matters, if he was over an avera regarding his personal matters. But if it's regarding monetary matters, he was dishonest, he took somebody's money, Adam Hadalimari, then only until you see him actually returning the money, then you can be sure that he's back on the right path. Continues the Gemara. In 24 instances, Beis Din Menadin, the court, the Beis Din would excommunicate al kavod harav, on account of the honor of a teacher. Rashi explains that the teacher here is referring to either a Talmud Chacham, who's a teacher, or Hashem, who's considered a Rav as well. We found all of them in our Mishnah, that one who acts disrespectfully to a Rav, he is excommunicated. Amar Rebbe Lezer, Heicha, where have you found 24 separate instances where one is excommunicated? Amar Lezer, Rishon Levi told him, go and look and search, and you'll find. Nafak, so he went, Dog v'ashkach, he investigated, and indeed he came up with merely 3 cases. V'ashkach klas. One of them is Hamazalzel M'til Sadayim, one who belittles the takana, the Takanas Chachamim, the rabbinic enactment of the requirement to wash one's hands prior to eating. So one who belittles that, he's mezalzel on that, he is deserving of nidui. One who speaks disrespectfully after a Talmid Chacham passed away. One who acts disrespectfully to Hashem. What do we see these three instances mentioned in the Mishnah? Says the Gemara, number one, one who speaks disparagingly regarding a Talmid Chacham who passed away. Where do we find this? This nan, as we say in the Mishnah, Hu hayomer. This is Akavi ben Mahalal, who held that regarding the Hashkaya Saita, we know that a Saita, a woman who's strayed from her husband, we give her the Mei Saita to drink. Said Akavi ben Mahalal, Ein mashkin, we do not do this. Loyes hagiyeris, we don't give a giyeris, a convert, to drink. V'loyes hamshuchreres, nor do we do so to a slave maid who was released, who was set free. Since we learned from the pasuk that it needs to be Bnei Yisrael, a Yid that was born a native Jew, but not a convert or a shivcha meshulcheres. Chachamim say no. Even in these cases, they are given the mei soita, the water of the soita, mashkin. We do give it to them. For Amr Loy, and they proved it with the following story. Masa, there was a story Becharkemis, in the town of Charkemis, shivcha meshulcheres, B'Yerushalayim. She was a shivcha meshulcheres, a released slave maid from the town of Charkemis. And they came to Yerushalayim, v'yishkua Shmaya v'Avtalion. And Shmaya and Avtalion, who were the leaders, they indeed gave it to drink the Meisaita. So we see that even a Mishuchreres drinks Meisaita. This was their proof in opposition of the Shita of Akavi ben Mahalal, who maintains that a Mishuchreres does not get to drink the Meisaita. V'amr lahem, so he responded to them, Dugma yishkua. You know why they gave it to drink? Because she was similar to them. Shmaya and Avtalion themselves were converts, and therefore they weren't too particular regarding converts, and since they were converts, so they gave her to drink, although she was only a shivcha meshulcheres, she was a released slave, and she wasn't a native-born Jew. Says the Gemara, V'nidu. As a result of this comment, V'nidu, they excommunicated him, since he spoke disrespectfully regarding Shmaya and Avtalion. Umeis b'niduyai. The excommunication remained until his passing. V'saklu beiznes aroinei. Bezdin put a stone on his coffin to indicate that he was excommunicated. So we see that the Mishnah relates a story where one received nidui, excommunication on account as a result of him being disrespectful towards Talmidei Chachamim that had already passed away. Says the Gemara, where do we find the story about nidui being given upon belittling the takana of Netilas Yadayim? It's not as we saw in the Mishnah. Omar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda was in dispute with the Shita, with the previously mentioned Mishnah that mentioned that Akavi ben Mahalal was excommunicated. Rabbi Yehuda says that cannot be so. Chas v'sholem, it's inconceivable. She Akavi ben Mahalal nisnada. It's impossible to say that he was nisnada. Why? Because he was a man of such high stature. You can't say that he received nidui. She'en azoran and eles al ka'adam Yisrael. The doors of the Azara in the Beis Hamikdash would not close when all the Yidden were in there. And this was speaking about on Erev Pesach, when the Yidden used to come bring their Korban Pesach to bring it to be makriv in the Beis Hamikdash, and the Azara would close and close with a full Azara full of Yidden. And Rabbi Yehuda says that in that Azara full of Jews, there was no one there that could be equated with the stature of Akavi ben Mahalal. Shein Azaran and Elas, the doors of the Azara would close al Kol Adam Yisrael, and there was nobody there that could measure up to him. B'chachma and wisdom, b'tahara and purity, b'yiras chet and fear of heaven, Akavi ben Mahalal. He was a man of such high stature. So it's impossible to even consider that he received nidui. Ella, but rather esmi nidu. Who was it that received nidui? Es Elazar ben Chanoich. Why? Shepikpek ben Netilas Yadayim. Because he belittled, he was mezalzel in the takana of the requirement, the rabbinic requirement to wash one's hands, and he received an excommunication as a result of that. Ukeshemeis, when he died, Sholchu Bezdin, the Bezdin sent V'nichu Even Doel Al Aroino to place a large stone on his his coffin, to teach us Lamedcha Shekol HaMisnada Umeis Beniduyai, one who received nidui and died in that state, bathed in Soiklin Saroinoi, bathed in stone his coffin. So they placed a stone to symbolize the stoning process. So here we see a source for one receiving nidui as a result of him being mefakbek v'netil sadayim, for belittling a takana, an enactment of the Chachamim to require one to wash his hands prior to eating. Says the Gemara finally, what is the third example of Hamegis, Date Klapimala, one who is disrespectful towards heaven, towards Hashem? Maihi, where do we find this? This nan, as we've seen in the Mishnah, Sholach Shimon ben Shetach l'choyni ha'ma'agil. Shimon ben Shetach sent a message to Choyni ha'ma'agil. Who was Choyni ha'ma'agil? So the Chazal explain that there was a story that the Yidden, the Jews, came to Choyni, who was a righteous man, and they asked him, please, beseech heaven, ask Hashem, be mispalil, that it should rain. It was a time of drought. Please daven to Hashem. We're depending on you. And tried to get Hashem to give us rain. So Choyni began to daven, and he was unsuccessful. So what did he do? He took a stick and formed a circle in the earth around him, and he said to Hashem, Hashem, Klal Yisrael is depending on me. They're depending on my power of prayer. Hashem, I promise you, I will not leave this circle until you have rachmanis on your children, until you provide them with rain. And it began to rain, but only in a trickle. He turned again to Hashem and he said, this is not what I asked for. We need rain to fill the empty wells, empty pits. Suddenly it started raining strong. And he said to Hashem, no, this is not what I asked for. It's raining too strong with a vengeance. We need Gishmei Ratzain, rain of goodwill. And then it started raining properly. So this was the story of Choyni HaMa'agel. HaMa'agel means a circle. So Shimon ben Shetach sent him a message and he said, you are worthy of receiving nidui, excommunication, on account of you speaking in this manner to Hashem, badgering Hashem in this way of demanding. If it's not for the fact that you have such a great reputation, that you're such a great man, I would have given you nidui, I would have excommunicated you. So what can I do? You badger Hashem. Hashem indeed fulfills your ratzain, He provides you with your request. Just like a ben like a son who badgers his father, and indeed he fulfills his wishes. Regarding you, the pasuk says the following: Yismach avicha v'imecha, your father and mother are happy and proud. And the one who bore you is joyous. So here we see another example where one was deserving of excommunication as a result of him speaking disrespectfully to Hashem. Is this the only example? Do we not find other examples of nidui? We found another story. The Tanir of Yosef, there was a respected person in Rome, that he enacted a minhag as follows. He made a minhag lachilon, that they should eat gdiyim kulasim b'leili psachim, a goat that was roasted in a manner which resembled the roasting of the Korban Pesach. They would take the inside, they would take the legs, and they would put it right next to the goat, and that's how they would roast it. And it was done in a similar fashion as they used to do the Korban Pesach. And the Chachamim disallowed that. They prohibited that, since a onlooker would erroneously think that this perhaps is a Korban Pesach, since it looks similar, and would conclude from this that one may eat kachim even outside the Beis Hamikdash. So they didn't like this type of minhag that he enacted. Shalach Shimon ben Shetach, he sent him a message to this person Toides, and he said, El Moli, Toides out, if not for the fact that you're a person of such high esteem, I would have given you nidui, I would have excommunicated you. Why? Because you're feeding Klal Yisrael kachim karbanis outside the Beis Hamikdash. Rashi explains, not literally feeding them, but it appears like a Korban Pesach, and therefore a person that's watching this could erroneously conclude that it's a Korban Pesach and come to eating a Korban outside the Beis Hamikdash. The Chacham prohibited this. So we see that the concept, the term nidui, was applied in this case as well. So why did you not add it into your list? Says the Gemara, we were listing cases that were found in the Mishnah, and this is a Brisa. Says the Gemara, you can't find any more in a Mishnah? We have another case. This is speaking about a oven, a old time oven where they used to make basically a big pot, a pot shaped vessel out of cheres, out of some sort of earth, and they would bake it in a furnace until it hardens, and that was their tanur, that was their oven, and it was actually makabel tumah. It was considered to be a full-fledged vessel which is susceptible to receiving tumah. Now, what if a oven made of cheres becomes tummy? Is there any way to be matayer, to purify it? The pasuk says that regarding cheres, the only way to remove impurity, to remove tumah, is by demolishing it, by being noitates, completely demolishing it. So what if the oven, the tanur shel cheres, became tummy, and they wanted to be matayer, so they demolished it in the following manner. They went ahead and they sliced it horizontally. They sliced it into a couple of sections. And at this point, it's no more oven and it's tar, because it's not fit for use. Now they go ahead and they take some chol, they take some sand, and they insert it in between the sections. So it's being held together by sand, not held together by properly heated and furnace earth. So it's simply sand that's holding it together. Does this have the status of a full-fledged oven, of a kli cheres, which will be mekabel tumah going forward? Or perhaps, since it's being held together merely by chol, by sand, was never heated up in a furnace, was never baked again, so according to Belezer, it has the status of a kli adama. It's just earth. It's not considered a kli cheres, and it is not mekabel tumah. So this was a machlekes between Rabbi Lezer, who had retired this type of tanur, this type of oven, and the Chachamim maintained, since the main portions of the oven are properly formed, therefore it is mekabel tumah. Continues the Gemara. There was a story in a Mishnah. The Snan chaschoi chulyos. He sliced the oven into chulyos, into sections. V'nasan chol ben chulya chulya. He put sand in between these round sections. Rabbi Lezer matar. Rabbi Lezer says it's not a proper oven, and it is tahar. Even if something tummy touches it, it will not be mekabel tumah. The Chachamim no. The Chachamim said yes, it is tummy. It's considered to be a full-fledged kli cheres, which is mekabel tumah. V'zeu tanuroi shel achnoi. This is referred to the tanur of achnoi, a coiled snake. My achnoi. Why this term achnoi? Rav Yehuda Mashmo Melamed. This teaches us shekifu halachas kachnoi. They surrounded Rabbi Lezer with proofs. They argued with him, they debated with him, and they proved to him that this oven has the status of a full-fledged oven. They surrounded him like a coiled snake, and they concluded that the oven should be mekabel tumah. Rabbi Lezer maintains his position. He defended his opinion. He held no, it is not mekabel tumah. And he was very forceful about defending his opinion, even against the majority. V'tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Oise hayoim, that day, he viewed kol taharoi shatir Rabbi Lezer. They brought back they gathered, they assembled all the taharis, the food that was used in this oven that Rabbi Lezer considered to be a Torah oven. So everything that Rabbi Lezer allowed to be baked in this oven, according to Rabbi Lezer, is still Torah. The Chacham held they are tamei. So they brought all those foodstuffs, all those items that Rabbi Lezer considered to be Torah, v'sar from lefanov, and they burnt it in front of him to make a statement. At the end, they put him into excommunication because he was so forceful, and he made a big machlekes against the Roiv, the majority. And as the Rishonim explained, since they were sourced in a tradition, their opinion was based on a Mesorah, and his position was merely based on a svar and a logic, so he shouldn't have gone to that extent. So we see here a story mentioned in the Mishnah that a Chacham was excommunicated on account of him going against the Roiv, going against the majority. So why don't you list this in your examples? Says the Gemara, we don't find clearly stated in the Mishnah that there was a nidui here. Therefore, it doesn't say the word nidui. Therefore, it is not listed in the aforementioned list. Although we mentioned the word birchu, that if you pay attention, that was in the Tanya, that was in the Brachos. But in the Mishnah of Desnan Chos Choychulyos, there's no mention of nidui. Therefore, it doesn't belong in our list. Says the Gemara, so we only have three really. Rabbi Shua ben Levi gave an opening statement. He said, in 24 instances we find excommunication. We only found three. Again, says the Gemara, in 24 occasions, where have you found? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Shua ben Levi medama milsa milsa. Rabbi Shua ben Levi compared one instance to another, meaning, although we never found clearly mentioned nidui on 24 occasions in a Mishnah, however, Rabbi Shua ben Levi found 24 different scenarios, different instances in the Mishnah where we find that nidui would have been a place. Nidui would have been appropriate. For instance, where we find that an individual, a yachid, was very strong in his forceful in his opposition to a majority, or if we find that a sage spoke disrespectfully about a sage that was greater than him in chachma and wisdom, so in those cases, nidui is appropriate, and he found 24 such cases. So that is a shita, the Pinei Rabbi Shua ben Levi, who mentioned the number of 24. However, Rabbi Lezer, who challenged him and said, no, I only found 3, he did not compare one case to the other, he did not derive one instance from the other. Since he only found 3 explicitly stated in the Mishnah, he maintained that there really were only 3 such cases. So in summary, Rabbi Shua ben Levi teaches us that in 24 instances, excommunication nidui was appropriate on account of al-kavod harav, on account of the honor of a Rav. For one who is disrespectful towards a Rav, and as Rashi teaches us, also Hashem has the status considered to be a Rav, our teacher. Rabbi Lezer says, I only came up with 3 cases. Number 1 was the Mezalzel Matilas Yadayim. Number 2 was the Mesaper Achar Mitason Shal Talmid Chachamim, who spoke disrespectfully regarding a Talmid Chacham who had passed away. And finally, Megiz Daiti Klape Mala, one who was disrespectful towards heaven, towards Hashem. Continues the Gemara. Noise Hamita B'Chilufein. Turn around, we learned in the Brachos. Ein Moitzinas Hames Samech Krishma. We don't begin a funeral levaya right at the beginning of the eligible time to recite Krishma. We need to give the public some time to recite Krishma, and then we begin our funeral, for concern that if they don't recite Krishma now, they'll get involved in the levaya and they'll miss out on reciting Krishma. But if they already began, then we don't interrupt. We don't interrupt the funeral. Eini is that so that we don't begin a levaya at the beginning of the Zman Krishma. Rav Yosef, of course, Samach Krishma. They did begin his levaya. They took him out. They started escorting him. Samach Krishma at the beginning of Zman Krishma. Says the Gemara, Adam Chashiv Shani. He was a person of high esteem, and that is different. Continues the Gemara. Shalafnei Amita Shlach Amita. Tanarabanim. Ha'oiskim behesped. Ones who are involved in hesped and eulogizing the mace. What is their status regarding Krishma? So it depends. When the mace is there, is present in front of them, they can't recite Krishma in front of him. So what do? Nishmat and echad echad. They absent themselves one at a time. They disappear, and they read Krishma not in the presence of the mace. But if there's no mace there in front of them, so a public sits down and reads Krishma. And the Avel, the mourner, he sits quietly. They daven. He stands and he justifies himself Hashem's righteous judgments. He acknowledges Hashem's righteousness. And he says the following: Master of the world, I've sinned a lot in front of you, and you have not paid me back, you have not punished me. Even 1,000th of what I deserve. It should be your will. Hashem Elokeinu. You should close up our breaches, and all the breaches of Klal Yisrael, all the troubles, barachmim, with mercy. A person shouldn't use these words. A person shouldn't say that Hashem, really, I deserve much greater punishment, and you only gave me a little bit of what I deserve. He shouldn't speak like that. Why? The Amar Rab Shimon ben Lakish. The person shouldn't open his mouth for the Satan, for the Yetzer Hara. Meaning, the Satan acts as a prosecutor in the heavenly court. And if one goes ahead and expresses his guilt, so the Yetzer Hara has grounds for prosecuting him. He says, look, this person himself is admitting that he's guilty. So one is not meant to verbalize and express his deserving of punishment. Where do we see this? Where do we find this in a pasuk shenemar? Kimat kisdoim ayinu. We were like Stoim. We're in such a bad situation. We're compared like the people of Stoim. How did the Navi respond to them in Hashem's name? He said, Shimud var Hashem k'tinei Stoim. Listen to the word of Hashem, the chiefs of Stoim. So we see that being that they consider themselves guilty like the people of Stoim, they verbalized that term. Hashem indeed responded to them in kind and referred to them in that context. So we see that a person's words carry weight. The person should be careful not to incriminate himself with his own words. Continues the Gemara. The Mishnah says that if they have enough time on the way back from being kavrim, on the way back to forming the shura, the circle around the mourner to provide him with nichum, so if they have enough time in between the kvura and the shura to recite the entire Krishma, they must do so. The Mishnah implies that only if they have enough time to recite the whole thing. What if they only have enough time to recite a pasuk or a parsha? Should they do so? Let's see the Gemara. It sounds from the Mishnah, only if they can complete the whole thing, they must do so. Aval perak echad, they only have time for one portion. Or pasuk echad, one verse lie, they don't need to recite it. V'ramini, we found the brisa which teaches otherwise. Karvers hameis v'chazru. They're on the way back from Kvura. They're required to do so. So the Mishnah also meant so. If they can complete even just one verse or one portion prior to arriving at the designated place of making the shura, they must do so. They should do so. But there isn't even enough time for that. They're not required to begin reciting. Continues the Gemara on the Beis. Shura haroya pnima ptura. They made a circle, they formed a circle around the mourners, so that the mourners who are in the area inside the circle are offered nichum, condolences, by the people in the circle. Now it depends. The people that are in the position to see this area, the space where the Avelim are stationed, so they're involved in a mitzvah, so they're part of Shura Haroya Pnima. The ones who can see inside Torah are exempt from mitzvahs, since they are being Isaac with mitzvah of offering Tanchumi Avelim. But the ones that are standing on the periphery, they're standing outside, and they don't see, and Haroya Pnima, they can't see inside, they can't observe the Avelim Chayeves, they're not involved in the mitzvah, so they're obligated to do mitzvahs. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, it also depends as follows. Haboy machmas ha'evel pturin. Ones who come with the intent of offering Tanchumi Avelim, so they're Isaac with mitzvah, they're potter. But those that come to merely observe, they're merely spectators, machmas atzman, they're coming on their own account out of their curiosity, so then chayavin, they're not considered to be Isaac with mitzvah, and they're obligated to do the other mitzvahs. Continues the Gemara. Omar Rav Yehuda Marav, hamoitze kalayim bevigdoi. If one discovers that he has kalayim, the mixture of wool and linen, in his baguette, and he's walking in the middle of the street, Paishtan, he must remove them, afilu b'shuk, even in the marketplace. Even though it involves embarrassment, nevertheless, human dignity cannot be equated to transgression of a avera. My time, what is the reason? Ein chochma, vein tvuna, vein etza. Wisdom, understanding, counsel, all these great human attributes don't compare l'neged Hashem, don't equate to the honor of Hashem. Kol makam sheish chilul Hashem, in the place of desecration of Hashem's name, of transgressing a sin, ein cholkin kavod harav. We don't forego Hashem's honor for the reason of honoring a Rav. So we see here that even the Chachma, Eitz and Tfuna of a teacher who is full of these great qualities of wisdom, of understanding, of Eitz, of counsel, he doesn't equate to Chilul Hashem. So a person who discovers that he is transgressing a sin, he must even embarrass himself. And we don't reckon with his dignity compared to a Chilul Hashem. Says the Gemara, Meisvei. We have a brisa which says as follows: Covers ha meis v'chazru. Then on the way back from bearing a mace, v'lefneihem beis drachim, and in front of them there are two pathways. Achas tahira, one which contains no impurity, no mace, no kaver. It's tar. The kohen may walk there. V'achas tmeya, but there's another path that contains tuma. there's a caver there, and a kohen is not allowed to become tamei. So it depends. Which way should the people, which path should they walk on? So it depends. Ba b'Torah, if the mourner begins walking on the Torah path, boinimoi b'Torah, they following along. However, ba b'Tmeya, if the Avel starts walking on the path that has Tumah, boinimoi b'Tmeya mishum kvoidai, everybody follows him along that path. They don't want to embarrass him by recalling him and changing the route. They follow him mishum kvoidai, on account of his honor. Even a kohen is allowed to follow the Avel on a tamei path and become tamei in order not to insult the Avel. We see here that kavod habriyas, dignity of man, surpasses kavod hamalkim. Even in the place of transgressing an avera, one gives priority to kavod habriyas. Amai, why do you do so? Lema, let us say, ein chachma vein tvuna leneged Hashem. When compared to Hashem's honor, we don't reckon with chachma and tvuna and a person's honor. So why do we do so? Says the Gemara, Tirgum Rav Abba interpreted this halacha. It's not regarding a tumah like a caver, like a grave which is tamei midaraisa. We're speaking about merely bebeis hapras d'Rabbanan. It was a beis hapras which contains a tumah d'Rabbanan. A beis hapras is a field which contains a caver, a grave, and they plowed it over. So midaraisa, there's no concern that the plow went so deep as far as the grave and dragged along the bones of the grave throughout the field. However, midrabanan, they were concerned that perhaps that happened, and perhaps some small chips of the mace of the deceased from the caver got scattered throughout the sada, and there's tumah there. If one touches it or moves it, maga or masa, he'll become tummy. So the Rabbanan enacted a tumah called tumas beis hapras. Pras means crushed up, broken up. This is the term used for this type of field. So this field, which contains a tumah d'Rabbanan, that is the tumah, that is the pathway that we were referring to before. When we said there were two pathways, one was tar, one was tamei, we referred to a pathway that was tamei on account of it being a beis hapras, which is considered to be a tumah. However, it's only midrabanan. Therefore, since it's merely midrabanan, they were lenient and they allowed the crowd to follow behind the Avel, although there was a kohen amongst the crowd. Where do we see the leniencies regarding a beis hapras? The Amar Rav Yudah Mashmo, Menapech Adam beis hapras v'hoilech. One may blow along his path in the beis hapras to blow away any chips of bones, and then he can walk. He can be confident that there's no bones there. And as the Mepharshim explain, this would only apply if it would only be a good solution if it's a tumah d'Rabbanan. Since it's merely a rabbinic concern, so blowing is sufficient to ensure that there's nothing there. If it would be a midaraisa, the blowing solution would not be sufficient. So here we see that tumas beis hapras is merely d'Rabbanan. In addition, says the Gemara, Rav Yudah bar Ashi mishmei derav, beis hapras shenidash tar. As well, if a beis hapras was trampled upon, the crowds walked on it, so in that case we assume again that there's nothing left there, everything got crushed, and there isn't any chip of a bone the size of a barley, which is the minimal size requirement for a bone to be matame. So we see here again that the Chacham were lenient regarding a tumah beis hapras, that they said once it was trampled upon, it is not considered to be tummy. So in summary, a beis hapras is merely a tumah d'Rabbanan, and therefore that explains the leniency mentioned before, that if an avel, if a mourner on the way back from Kfura happens to take the pathway of a beis hapras, all are allowed to follow on account of his kavod habriyas, of human dignity, so not to insult him. Although it is a malkum tamei, nevertheless, since it is a tumah d'Rabbanan, this is allowed. But regarding a isur or tumah d'Araisa, a biblical tumah, a biblical prohibition, certainly human dignity doesn't equate. And therefore, in the case of one who discovers kilayim on himself, even if he's in the marketplace, he must remove it at the expense of his own honor and dignity in order not to be over and aver. Continues the Gemara. Tanish Tashma, listen to this proof. The Amar of Lezer Tzaddik. He was a kohen, and he said as follows: Medalgin hayinu al gabi arein shel mesim. We used to jump over the coffins of mesim, likras malchei Yisrael, in order to greet, to see the honor of the Jewish kings. For likras malchei Yisrael b'vad amru, not only Jewish kings, el afilu likras malchei akum, even to see the honor accorded to non-Jewish kings. Why was it so important for one to see the procession and the fanfare associated with the kings? She'im yiske, so that if he merits, if he's zeiche, that la'asad lavai, in the world to come, he will see the honor, the great honor, much greater honor regarded to Mashiach and to Klal Yisrael. He will be able to differentiate. He'll have a standard, a benchmark with what to measure the much greater honor accorded to us in the world to come, according to the future of Klal Yisrael. Yavchin ben Malchi Yisrael and Malchi Acham. He'll be able to differentiate between the honor accorded to the Geisha kings in this world and the honor accorded in the future in the world to come. So we see again that a Kohen was allowed to become Tameh. He walked over the coffin, the Aron, which is Matame bi oil. If one leans over a mace, he becomes Tameh. Tumah was allowed for the sake of honor. Says the Gemara, why was that allowed? Leima, we should apply the same rule of Ein Chachma, Ein Tvuna, Ein Eitzel, Neged Hashem. Person can't transgress an Aveira for the sake of a dignity and honor. Says the Gemara, there is different. K'da Rava. The Amar Rava Torah Halacha. Dvar Torah, Min al Torah, oil, any roof, anything leaning over, any overhang, sheyesh boi chalal tefach, choytes v'nei atuma. If there's something impure, if there's a tumah, and then there's a space of a tefach above it, empty space, and then comes the roof, the overhang. So what happens then is that the tumah only rises up until the oil, and no more. It interrupts the rise of the tumah. So again, oil shekol sheyesh boi chalal tefach, but it has an empty space of a tefach above the tumah. Choytes v'nei atuma. Then the oil that's above that tefach interrupts the tumah and doesn't allow it to proceed. But if there's no gap of a tefach, then the tumah just shoots through the oil. The oil, the overhang, the roof cannot stop the tumah from continuing. Now, the majority of coffins, yesh b'mechalal tefach, they would build it in a way that it would leave a gap of a tefach on top of the deceased. So in that case, the tumah of the mace will not arise, will not extend past the roof of the aron. So one who passes over the aron does not contact any tumah. However, this is Torah. However, midrabanan, they were concerned perhaps that some people will not be meticulous about this, and since in some cases they do not leave the halal tefach, and the tumah will go through the covering of the oil, therefore the Chachamim enacted a decree exera that all aronis should be metame on account of those few that do not have the tefach. V'gozru al sheyesh ben mishum she'ein behem, and they were gozer all even on the aron that has a tefach. They were gozer tumah on account of those that don't. So, in conclusion, the concern about a coffin nowadays is merely d'Rabbanan. It is not a tumah d'Oraisa, since the majority of aronis have a tefach, have a halal tefach, which makes that the roof, the covering of the aron will stop the tumah from continuing. So one who jumps over an aron is not tumah d'Oraisa, it's merely d'Rabbanan. So in this case, and indeed in the case of honor and dignity of kings, the Chachamim did not decree. So that explains the story of Eliezer Tzaddik, that since it was only a d'Rabbanan, in a case of a d'Rabbanan we do reckon with honor and with dignity. But in a case of Kalayim, which is a d'Oraisa, honor and dignity do not compare, do not equate to transgressing of an Aver. Tashma, Gadol Kvod Abriyos, the dignity of a human being is great. It even surpasses and overpowers a lois hasei in the Torah. Says the Gemara, V'amai, how could you say so? Didn't we just say, Leima, ein chachma vein tfuna vein eisen neged Hashem? How could you make the statement that human dignity will do away with a lois hasei? That is not so. Tirguma Rav Bar Shava Kamed Rav Kahana, he explained, he interpreted this brisa that it's referring to belav lois aser. There's a lav in the Torah which says you should not stray. And regarding this lav, if one needs to transgress this lav, that is allowed if it is in a place of human dignity. Says the Gemara, we don't understand. They laughed on him. What do you mean? Lav loisasa deraisi. This is a pasuk in the Chumash. How can you say that one may be over on the lav of loisasa for the sake of kavod abriyos? Amar of Kahana, 1 second, slow. Gavar Rabba Amar Milsa, when a great person says something, don't laugh at it. There must be some meaning, deeper meaning to what he said. This is really what he meant. He meant, Kol Mila de Rabbanan, all the rabbinic enactments and decrees, Asmechinu, they based it on this pasuk, Al Alav de Loisaser, meaning, Torah says, Hashem says, Lo yisasser, don't stray from what the Chacham will teach you. This enabled the Chachamim in the future to enact Gzeros and Takanos. It was based on this allowance. Hashem empowered them with this pasuk to enact their Takanos and their Gzeros. So what he was referring to, what Rav Kahana was referring to, that, or Rav Shava was referring to, when he told Rav Kahana that the pasuk, the brayso of God Kavod Abriyos, that human dignity surpasses a lav, he was referring to specifically this lav, the lav of Leisasa. What he meant to say was that it can negate, the human dignity can negate a takana d'Rabbanan, which is based on this lav. So what he's really referring to is a takana d'Rabbanan. He just termed it, he coined it in this way. He said that Kavod Abriyos is more powerful, is more weighty than a takana Chacham, which is based on the lav of Leisasa. However, the Rabbanan, in their decrees, they waived their takanos in a case where it is at the expense of a kavod abriyos, of human dignity. And Rashi explains, gives us some examples that we see that the Chachamim waived their takana, their gzera, when it was at the expense, when it involved kavod abriyos. L'mashal, Rashi says, being metaltal avanim b'Shabbos in order for to use in the Beis HaKisei, even though it's muksa, the Chachamim waived there is some muksa on account of kavod abriyos. Another case, Rashi says, if one discovers that his tzitzis became torn in the Carmelis, which is a place which is not a person can't carry in a Carmelis because of a D'Rabbanan. In that case, even though he's considered to be carrying, since his tzitzis is not kosher anymore, nevertheless, they did not obligate him to remove his clothing on account of human dignity. They waived the Issa D'Rabbanan. So, in conclusion, regarding Issa D'Rabbanan, yes, there was a waiver when it involved kavod abriyos, but not an Issa D'Oraisa. Tashma, I will bring you another right. V'salamta, one may hide himself. V'salamta mehem, you can hide yourself when you find a lost object, and you don't need to return it to the owner. Says the Brachos, what does this mean? Pa'amim shata mis'alei mehem. Sometimes, on occasion, you may hide yourself. Or pa'amim, but other times you can't. She'enata mis'al mehem. Sometimes you're allowed to ignore the aveda, the lost object, just leave it there, and you're not required to return it. And sometimes you are required. Haketzat. How do you explain the difference? Why sometimes yes, sometimes no? Im hayakayin, if this man who notices an aveda, finds a lost object, it's sitting in the middle of a cemetery. He's not allowed to go into a cemetery to be metam himself. So in that case, he may be mis'alim, ignore it, and just keep on going. Oi hayazakin, he was an elder. This object that he finds is below his dignity for him to get involved with this type of object, and therefore he could be mis'alim, he can hide himself and ignore it, and is not required to return it. Or if the loss that this person would incur, he would lose from his salary, from his employment, if he has to spend all his time returning a very insignificant object, which is worth much less than the loss that he would incur, so then, in that case, he can just ignore it. So you see from here that the middle case of zakein, a person does not have to lower himself and embarrass himself in order to return somebody's lost object. He's ignoring a mitzvah. How could it be that one is allowed to ignore a mitzvah on account of his own honor and dignity? Says the Gemara, Shani Hossam, there is different. The pasuk clearly says, you're allowed to ignore the Aveda. So that's different. Says the Gemara, so let's derive from there. Let's learn from there to other places as well, that we see that human dignity surpasses an Avera. Says the Gemara, there's a difference. Since over there is monetary, it's mamayna, isura me mamayna leyafina. We can't derive prohibitions. Cases that involve transgressing a prohibition in isur, we can't derive that from a halacha that is strictly applicable to mammon, to monetary matters. Since returning a chayfetz and aveda is money, it's merely a monetary case, therefore it is more lenient, since it is an interpersonal monetary responsibility. So in that case, we do measure up this person's need versus this person's need. And since it involves a person's honor, we can't say, well, you're obligated to disregard your honor for the sake of returning money to somebody else. His honor is more important. Therefore, the Torah allows for him to ignore the Aveda. But this is not to say that regarding Isser, that's allowed. Continues the Gemara. Tashma, come in here. It's referring to a person who is a nazir, and the pasuk tells you that he cannot become tamei, even la'chaisei, to his close relative, to his sister. He can't be involved in her burial. And the question is, Ma Talmud Laima, why is it necessary for the Torah pasuk to stipulate since the pasuk already says that he may not be metame to his krovim, to all his relatives? That will include also his sister. So why does the pasuk have to explicitly list v'lachaisai? It's coming to teach you something. It's coming to teach you as follows: that only to his sister he can't attend to, but if there's a mace mitzvah, an unattended corpse, a mace that is lying around with nobody to take care of it, there's an allowance even for a nazir to be metame to this mace. Not only an ordinary nazir, even if he's a nazir and he's a kohen, and he's on his way to bring his Korban Pesach, or to do milah to his children, even though he's involved in such weighty activities, and he's a nazir and a kohen, says the pasuk, only to his sister he can't become a tamei, but yes to a mace mitzvah. Continues the Brachos. Why does the Torah have to stipulate that he's not allowed to become tamei to his sister, since it already says that he can't become tamei to his relatives? The Torah is teaching you. He's going to shech his Korban Pesach. To do milah to his son. He hears about his relative that dies. He should go back and become tamei. No, he cannot do so. I would think, just like he can't become tamei to them, he can't become tamei to an unattended mace, to one who needs him, who's desperate. That's why the pasuk tells you, only la'achaisei to his sister who eidim tamei, avo tamei mace mitzvah, but he can indeed become tamei to a mace mitzvah who's unattended. There's nobody to care for him, so he can become tamei in order to take care of him. Here we see a clear example that in order to tend to a mace mitzvah, for human dignity, for kamer avriyas, he's allowed to be over. He's allowed to transgress and become tamei. Amai, why? Wisdom, understanding, counsel, human honor doesn't equate to Hashem. Shani Hasam there is different. We have a pasuk that tells you that he's allowed to do it. So this is an exception. Although ordinarily one is not allowed to transgress a sin for the sake of kavod avriyas, but this is different because the Torah explicitly allows it. Says the Gemara, if so, why can't we derive from here elsewhere? Just like here you're allowed to be oven aver for kavod avriyas, so too elsewhere. Says the Gemara, sheva al tasishani. There is different because he's merely refraining. He's not actively doing an avera. He's refraining. What does it mean? He's refraining. He's losing out on being able to bring his Korban Pesach. He's losing the opportunity to do milah on his son. So this is merely refraining. It's not actively transgressing. Therefore, this is different. And this cannot be compared to the case that we mentioned earlier regarding one wearing kilayim in the marketplace. That's an active transgression of an avera, and in that case, human dignity does not waive the need to avoid an avera. Transgression of an avera, chil Hashem, is more weighty than kavod avriyas. Ask Rashi. Fine, this explains why he's allowed to forego his Korban Pesach, his milah. It's sheval tais. It's merely refraining from doing a mitzvah. So that is allowed on account of kavod avriyas. But what about the fact that he is a nazir and a kohen and becoming tamei? He's being matamei himself. That's an active avera. Says Rashi that regarding a nazir becoming tamei to the mace mitzvah, we have to understand as follows. When the Torah prohibited a nazir from becoming tamei to a mace, it wasn't referring to a mace mitzvah. The Torah was never referring to this unique situation. It only prohibited it from becoming tamei to an ordinary mace or to a relative, but not to a mace mitzvah. So the prohibition was never said on this account. Similarly, regarding a kohen, ordinary kohen that we know is allowed to become tamei to his 7 krovim, although ordinarily a kohen can become tamei to a mace, says Rashi, regarding his krovim, the Torah never meant an isser, a prohibition in that case. So those cases are not actively transgressing an isser for the sake of kavod avriyas, for the sake of burying somebody, but rather the Torah never gave an isser in that case. A mace mitzvah regarding a nazir, or a korev, a relative, a close relative regarding an ordinary kohen, is not considered to be included in the original stipulation that they not become tamei. So again, the issue here is merely a sheval tasit, since he is losing his opportunity to bring his Pesach or his milah. Regarding the fact that he's becoming tamei, that's not an issue, because a mitzvah was never included in the prohibition of tumah to begin with. So therefore, it's not considered as all as he's being over an isser. So in conclusion, a person forgoes all his honor in order not to be over an isser. There are 3 exceptions. Number 1, if it is a derabanan. Number 2, if it's hashavas aveda, since it's mamain. And number 3, if it involves merely refraining, shev va'al taseh.